Welcome back to the deep dive. You gave us the sources on Apple's latest moves, and we've distilled that flood of information into the essential nuggets you need to be perfectly informed.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into, well, probably the biggest structural change Apple has made to its software in years.
A huge one.
We're talking about the official retirement of traditional version numbers. So, goodbye, iOS 18.
It's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
Everything is now based on the year, everything is 26.
So our mission here is really twofold. First, we're going to try to analyze the real corporate logic behind this. You know,
Mhm.
this uniform year-based naming. Why now, and how does it actually fix things?
And second, we are going to do a really meticulous breakdown of the iOS 26.2 update.
The point to it.
Exactly. Because this wasn't just, a simple bug fix. It delivered a major design refinement, some crucial productivity enhancements, and I mean, most importantly, some critical security fixes for exploits that you absolutely must understand.
Okay, let's unpack this branding shift first, because it really does change how developers and even just regular users navigate the whole ecosystem.
Hmm.
For over a decade, we had sequential numbers, right? iOS 15, 16, 17.
Right.
Now, starting with that WWDC announcement on June 9th, that's just gone. The calendar year is the version.
And I think the scope of this change is what really signals Apple's intent here.
It's everything.
It's everything, uniformity across the entire stack. We are not just talking about the iPhone. It's iOS 26, iPadOS 26, macOS 26,
WatchOS 26?
watchOS 26, tvOS 26, and of course, visionOS 26.
Mm.
If it's Apple software and it got an update this cycle, it's 26. Period.
It definitely cleans up the marketing,
Yeah.
makes the slide decks look nicer. But isn't there a risk of customer fatigue? A new number every single year.
Yeah.
What was the actual logistical pain point that forced this?
So that's a great question. And the pain point was deep and it was really developer focused, which I think is the real key to the corporate logic.
Right.
Historically, these operating systems, they all started their version counts at different times. They weren't launched simultaneously.
Right.
So in the same year, a developer might be working on an app and they've got to make sure it's compatible with, say, iOS 18, but also watch OS 12 and then maybe Vision OS 2.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those numbers are totally inconsistent, even though they were released at the same time. I can see how that would be a nightmare for specifying compatibility.
Precisely. If I'm a developer building an app that, spans the iPhone and the Vision Pro, just being able to say it works on all 26 platforms is infinitely cleaner.
So much simpler.
It's way less error prone than juggling three totally different numbers that have no chronological relationship to each other. By using the calendar year, Apple just instantly unifies the release cycle. It's a pragmatic cleanup job, really.
And this push for unification,
Mm.
for consistency, it isn't just in the naming, is it? It's clearly reflected in the new design language that iOS 20,
Yeah.
the Liquid Glass Cons aesthetic.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that liquid glass isn't just like a new texture, it's a whole design philosophy.
How so?
It's meant to bridge the physical screen and the digital content. Apple's own materials called it the broadest design update ever in iOS 26. It's a dynamic material that combines the optical properties of glass with fluidity.
It sounds beautiful. I mean, from what we've seen, it refracts the content that's underneath it. It reflects light, and it creates this gorgeous sort of lensing effect along its edges.
Exactly. It suggests depth. It makes the software feel less like flat graphics on a screen and more like natural elements resting on top of it.
But the small point update, the 26.2, is where this actually became user customizable.
Yes, this is where it gets interesting. They introduced a new liquid glass slider specifically for the lock screen clock, and this tiny little tweak is deceptively important.
Because it hands the control over to you, the user.
Yeah.
You can fine tune that clock's appearance from almost totally transparent, like a clear sheet of glass, to a much more frosted, opaque look.
It's customization down to the literal texture of the system. And this level of granularity, it interacts directly with accessibility.
Ah,
The liquid glass setting includes a tinted mode, which reduces the overall transparency. And this is where you need to be a little careful. The system gives you a warning that if you enable tinted mode, it automatically disables certain other accessibility options.
like reduced transparency or increased contrast.
Exactly. And that makes sense logically.
Yeah, I guess it does.
It does because they're contradictory visual goals. You can't have this beautiful glass aesthetic that relies on transparency and light while also telling the system to kill transparency for clarity. It forces you to choose a trade-off.
A trade off between the visual flair and just, optimal readability.
That's it. It's a necessary choice. So let's pivot from aesthetics to pure function and productivity, specifically what 26.2 did for just managing our lives.
Right.
And the most welcome quality of life improvement, at least in my view, has to be in the Reminders app. Reminders has always been good for, making lists, but it lacked the persistence, the disruptive nature of an actual alarm clock.
That's a good point. It was too easy to just swipe away. That weakness is now fixed.
It is. There's a new urgent setting when you create a reminder. You toggle this on, and the alert behaves exactly like a traditional clock alarm.
So you get the big snooze and stop options.
Exactly. It changes reminders from just a quiet suggestion box into a reliable taskmaster.
And it looks different too.
Right, the visual cues are excellent. If you hit snooze, the item actually shows a visible countdown right there on your lock screen. And these urgent alerts have a new blue hue, so they really stand out from all your other notifications.
Speaking of reliability, the update also did a lot for security and friction around AirDrop.
Yes, especially for sharing files with people you don't really know.
Right, AirDrop is super convenient, but the second you use it with a stranger, you either had to open your phone up to everyone or you had to exchange contact info, which is
A privacy friction we just don't need. So, iOS 26.2 introduces single use airdrop codes for temporary secure sharing.
so if I meet someone at a conference, I could just generate a code, and that code lets them receive a file from me for what, up to 30 days?
Up to 30 days without ever exchanging phone numbers. It's security without the friction.
Yeah.
And crucially, you can manage this access.
Where do you do that?
You can go review and remove these temporary contacts. It's in settings, then general, then airdrop, and then a new option manage known airdrop contacts.
That's a huge boost for visibility and security.
It really is. Okay, so beyond that, we got some great media updates too. For Apple Music subscribers, 26.2 brought offline lyric support.
Finally, so if you're on a flight or somewhere with no connection, the lyrics still show up.
Yeah. And the Podcasts app is finally catching up on some features we've wanted. It now has auto generated chapters,
Oh, nice.
which makes navigation much easier. Plus, you can see other mentioned podcasts directly from the player or the transcript. And there's a new section on episode pages that lists out links mentioned in the show.
Just making audio more interconnected.
Exactly. And one last accessibility point before we hit security. The flash for alerts setting, it's been expanded. It can now use the iPhone's screen flash for notifications, not just the little LED camera flash.
So the whole screen pulses to get your attention.
Right. It's a thoughtful expansion for visual notification.
Okay, now for the segment that demands your immediate attention. The security content in the iOS 26.2 update. This came out December 12, 2025. And this was not a routine release.
No, not at all. This was a critical patch. It addressed vulnerabilities that were already being actively exploited in the wild.
That's the key detail, isn't it? These weren't hypothetical weaknesses. Attackers were already using them.
Correct. The most severe fixes were for a use after free issue in WebKit.
And WebKit is the browser engine for Safari and, well, all web content inside apps.
That's right. And a use after free vulnerability, it's a type of memory corruption. It's a classic, high impact way for really sophisticated attackers to sneak malicious code past your system's defenses.
And we know this wasn't just, a theoretical risk.
No, Apple explicitly stated that they were aware of reports that this WebKit issue may have been exploited, and they used the phrase extremely sophisticated attack against specific targeted individuals on older versions of iOS.
Which just underscores why you need to install 26.2 immediately. If you were targeted, an attacker could basically take over web processes on your device.
And it wasn't just WebKit. The foundational software, the kernel itself, also got a vital patch.
That's right, the heart of the operating system.
Absolutely. The kernel had what's called an integer overflow issue. Simply put, a number could get too big, causing an error that an app could use to gain root privileges.
The highest level of access on the phone.
The highest level. Apple fixed this by adopting 64-bit timestamps. A technical fix, but it prevents these overflows and protects the core integrity of the whole OS.
And the privacy sweep in 26.2 is pretty comprehensive, wasn't it? It hit several system components.
Oh yeah, there were multiple critical permission issues they fixed. For instance, a fix in icons was crucial. It stopped an app from being able to identify what other apps you had installed.
Which is highly sensitive personal data.
It's a profile of you. They also closed holes related to sensitive payment data. There was an App Store issue that could have allowed access to payment tokens.
And communication, too.
Yep. They patched information disclosure issues in messages and logging vulnerabilities in screen time that could let an app access a user's Safari history. This whole update was a necessary massive sweep to lock things down.
So, what does this all mean for you, the user? I mean, we started with this massive corporate move, the shift to year based naming, iOS 26 across the board. That move provides clarity, it provides consistency, it ends that numerical friction for developers.
And then the functional updates in 26.2, they really refine the user experience. Productivity is genuinely better with those urgent reminders acting like real alarms. Full activity is more secure because of the one-time airdrop codes.
So, the immediate takeaway is the security overhaul.
Without a doubt. Prompted by those WebKit exploitation reports. The takeaway is update your device now.
Which brings us all the way back to the beginning, to aesthetics and that drive for total uniformity. Apple is unifying the branding with 26, and they're unifying the look with Liquid Glass.
And we noted how 26.2 gave us that small but powerful slider to fine tune the glass on the clock.
Right, from transparent to frosted.
So, if Apple's strategic goal really is complete uniformity, a single design language across every single platform, consider the subtle psychological implication of that. They're making something as simple as a clock, customizable through this delicate gradient of glass. You're giving control over the surface, making the OS feel less like rigid code and more like a malleable, responsive environment.
A seamless extension of the hardware itself.
Exactly. So, here's the thought to leave you with. What deeper psychological effect does this constant, subtle control over fluidity have on how we perceive and interact with an increasingly homogeneous ecosystem?
That is definitely something worth pondering. A perfect thought to mull over. Thank you for providing the source material for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.